Let's get into the game here itself, the Giants versus Jets, and we'll go through our notes, starting off with Daniel Jones, and most of the starters did not play in this one, the main ones being obviously like I said, Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor started this game, and then we'll talk about him a little later because he went down with an injury. Saquon Barkley did not play. Wide receivers-wise was Kadarius Toney, and Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, and did Darius Slayton go out there? Yes.
So he really just 2 plays, yeah.
So it was really only, even though I always think it's more because there's always wide receivers injuries, today at least the did not plays were Toney and Shepard.
Yeah.
Okay. And then some of the old linemen didn't play, some of the safeties didn't play, whatever. But yes, most starters did not play. I didn't need to go through the whole roster. But anyway, we mentioned Tyrod Taylor. I'll go to him now. He went down after getting blasted on a hit where he threw the ball, though. It was after the throw. Got blasted. Did not get up. He was down. 2 offensive linemen came to go help him and help him up. They thought he was okay. Then they called for the trainers. Trainers ran out. It was really scary because he didn't get off the field. He eventually did and ran off on his own power. So everyone was clapping. Sigh of relief. We're good. Then I get news via Twitter because the Giants were playing under us. We were in the 300, so we couldn't really see the Giants sideline well, nor was I looking for them. But so I'm following this on Twitter, even though it's kind of right in front of my eyes. I just didn't really pay attention because I'm watching the game. I see on Twitter that he went into the medical tent. Then he eventually went from the medical tent to the cart, which drove him into the locker room. Scary stuff there. I assume the Giants were just, taking precautions, the correct precautions to not injure him more. And it seems like right now, according to in his post-game press conference, Brian Dable, I believe, had a word on Taylor.
Yeah.
Was it Taylor?
Yeah, he did have a word on Taylor.
Okay.
He said Tyrod Taylor should be okay. He was back in the sidelines in the second half in a T-shirt or whatever. So hopefully that's a good sign. But yeah, concerning injury there, but hopefully not too bad. And then obviously Jalen Holmes and Daniel Bellinger both getting concussions. Oh man, it's annoying. But luckily they'll be back in a couple weeks and will be ready for week 1. So that is good. If indeed they both make the roster, I think Bellinger definitely will. Holmes we'll talk about.
We hope as long as the concussions
yeah, exactly.
Major,
unless they're major concussions. If they're normal, they'll be okay. But certainly the New York injured Giants continuing down not a very good path. Most injuries since 2009, and it looks like that streak's going to continue for quite a bit longer. I guess we can get into some of the things that actually happened in the game besides the injuries, because I know that's the main thing us Giants fans are talking about these days. Wando Robinson, I think he had his first positive gain play in preseason. It was an end around, and he showed that burst that we all hope to see from him. That trickery, that agility, that his juke moves. So it was really good to see him. Even though it was just one play, it was good to see that initial burst from him, and excited to see what he can do throughout the season in this Brian Dable offense when the full playbook is unleashed.
Yeah, Alex, I would agree with you and some other players that stood out today. Trenton Thompson had a positive performance. He was a big hitter, and he's pushing for, what did you have here? S4. Oh, safety number 4. I got it. I'm following what you're putting in the outline here. Perfect. Yes, so Trenton Thompson, that's a big news story, I guess, today from the game, is that he was out there with the starters, obviously not a starter himself when it comes to the regular season, but with the Giants having those the starters that are already kind of solidified on the roster, they put in some other guys to start this game, the backups, you can say. Trenton Thompson used his opportunity well, went out there, made some tackles, made some plays, pass breakups, whatever you want to call it, and now it kind of looks like it's a more upwards, higher percentage shot he makes the roster than a lower percentage, which it was earlier in the preseason. And another guy with that as well, using all of his opportunities to the maximum level with the second and third team. That is Austin Calitro, who had a fumble recovery today. He also had a pick 6. Or not a fumble recovery today. Or was that today too?
I thought he had a fumble recovery today. Did he not?
I guess that was today as well. Yeah, but I'm just thinking of the play that he made. Was it a pick that he made?
He also had a pick. He had
right
a tip pick in the first or second preseason game
Patriots
as well.
game.
Yeah, crazy, man. Austin Calitro's going crazy.
That pick six was just an awful throw by Joe Flacco, but honestly, he dropped back and read it well and took it all the way. So credit to Austin Calitro. I think this really shows if he does make the roster or if he doesn't, how much do preseason games matter to this new coaching staff and front office. I would say if he doesn't make the roster, it kind of shows that, like, whatever you do in preseason doesn't help you in the long run. If he does, then it's like, wow, this guy, because of his preseason, helped him make the roster. Because really, from the beat reporters, we didn't hear anything about him throughout practice of the training camp. He wasn't making plays there at all, and we didn't even see or say his name the 3 or 4 open training camp days we went to, Alex. So this really would show how much these preseason games matter to the Giants' new coaching staff and front office.
Yes, certainly. And I think another player here that did really well, another linebacker, certainly has also been playing well in training camp, so that's a differentiator there. But Mike Mcfadden, again, getting those tackle for loss, making solid tackles all around the field. Didn't do great in pass coverage today, but certainly I think had a solid day overall, nothing too terrible. But he definitely stood out on that defense with a lot of lesser-known names per se. Daniel Bellinger, before he got his concussion, he was targeted early and often, and he had a pair of very solid hands for both Tyrod Taylor and Davis Webb before he went down. So certainly positive signs coming in from the rookie tight end. And Jashawn Corbin, ran extremely well today. We saw one Antonio Williams run where he absolutely got blown to pieces, and he fumbled the ball. And then we saw a little bit of Gary Brightwell, but we saw a lot of Jashawn Corbin. He got a touchdown. He ran well. He caught balls out of the backfield, and certainly looked like he could be a possibility to make the roster in the initial 53, if not definitely the practice squad. So those are some more guys that really stood out. And obviously Davis Webb as well, continuing his hot streak. Davis Webb, QB1, who knows?
And I would say for some of these guys, definitely stay tuned till later in this episode when we talk about the 53-man roster final predictions we have. So yes, Davis Webb continues that hot streak. Brian Dable, actually, we'll save the Brian Dable postgame press conference stuff. Let's talk about the main issue in this game. The reason why the Giants really lost this game, because on that final drive, it was a key factor to the Jets driving downfield and getting that game-winning touchdown with only a few seconds left in the fourth quarter. Tackling. Especially tackling by this secondary, cornerbacks, safeties. Grabbing these guys by the legs, not dragging them down, going for their legs, missing completely. Cordell Flott got a touchdown really on him when he was about to tackle the wide receiver, whoever it was. I don't know if it was Denzel Mims or not. I just think of Mims because he had a really big day today.
I think it was Berrios.
I don't know who. Oh, Braxton Berrios' touchdown. Okay. Flott could have stopped him 10 yards from the end zone. He didn't. He got absolutely juked. And I think this is something that new defensive coordinator Wink Martindale should cover in these next couple weeks of practices before the game against the Titans. Or if it's not him and it's one of the defensive assistants, then they need to do that, because I guess tackling the Giants need a refresher in it because it was a big issue today. And Alex, I want to say this. If the Giants don't learn how to tackle and, in 2 weeks from now, they're going to have a really hard time against this Titans rushing game. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. The bulldozer himself, Derrick Henry, will destroy this Giants team rushing the ball in 2 weeks if they don't know how to tackle. Because that guy is a behemoth of a man, and he is built like
a mountain.
A behemoth of a man. A mountain, right. Saquon Barkley, he's got big quads, but Henry just has a big body in general. So if they're not able to tackle these slot wide receivers, these really thin, skinny guys, then I don't know how they're going to be able to tackle Derrick Henry. Yeah. So that is something that needs to be fixed, and it's got to be fixed quickly. I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, certainly. And not just that, even the coverage in general is just woeful by a whole bunch of these secondary guys. When we actually were looking at the 53-man roster and kind of looking at the cornerback position, we're like, oh my God, there's only 4 cornerbacks that have really put on this team. And it's like, even Aaron Robinson, who really has been struggling, he had a better day today. He had a couple really bad plays today, don't get me wrong, but he actually had a couple of decent snaps, which we haven't seen all preseason really at all. So that was definitely positive to see. He had a pass breakup on Denzel Mims, which was relatively impressive, and on Elijah Moore, I believe. So I was happy to see that, but certainly the secondary issues, look out on Tuesday evening, Wednesday. You're going to see a lot of moves, I think, particularly bringing in players to fill those secondary voids, because we certainly need depth at that position, if not another starter at cornerback too. So certainly something to watch out for. I think that's going to be the main thing to watch out for this week for the Giants. But yeah, that's certainly going to be a very big topic of discussion. Brian Dable, you went to him earlier. We're going to talk about him now. So Kenny Gallaudet, there was that video, of course, of him putting in zero effort again, which is kind of funny. I don't think it's as bad as some of the clips we've seen before in terms of his zero effort, but it certainly wasn't a great look considering the I guess the talk going around about him. I feel like he probably should have known, hey, maybe I should have blocked that. I don't think if people weren't talking about him doing that already, no one would have mentioned it. But because of how it's happening, what's going on, I think it kind of just added on to it. But on his decision to play and sit starters based on playtime and practice in games, it was asked by Dan Duggan, why did Kenny Gallaudet, who played a lot this summer, play? He said, we're playing all the receivers. It's a competitive group, so they're out there competing, which good, I guess, right? Get these guys out there. Kenny Gallaudet, just because he's making $72 million, doesn't exempt him from having to go out there and prove himself.
Yeah, and then the bigger, more headline type of quote, Alex, comes next, or when he talked about, we are playing all the way. Oh, so wait, that was the quote? I thought the more headliner of the quote was when they were asking him about not why he's played a lot this summer. I thought there was a quote about him.
Oh, the quote about him not making a roster? Well, he basically repeated the same thing. He said, they all have to compete, essentially.
Yeah. So the more headline of the quote, we just don't have in the outline. That's why I got stumped a little bit, is I forget who tweeted, all the beat reporters probably, when Brian Dable got questioned saying, well, is Kenny Gallaudet a question mark to make this roster? Or will Kenny Gallaudet make the roster? Something of that nature. He then responded with the same type of thing, saying, well, all the players are competing. Now, I think the competition card that kind of Brian Dable pulled out of his back pocket is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because then it pushes all the players to compete. And maybe it doesn't for Gallaudet because it seems like nothing will make him compete, but maybe it does for other players who are fighting for a spot on this roster. And I think that by Dable leaving all the question marks in the air, well, first of all, it's going to make the fans and media go crazy, which is, it sucks, but it's also really funny and exciting to see in one sense as well.
I love Twitter, man. I love Twitter. So much fun.
Some fans are going to make a big problem with this statement and saying, oh my God, why he should just say Galladay's a done deal on the roster. For me, I think it's a good thing. I have no problem with him not confirming Galladay's spot on this team. Another player that spot is maybe questionable. Wide receiver Darius Slayton said he wouldn't be surprised if he's not with the Giants past Tuesday. Quote, if it's meant for me to be here, I'll be here. If it's not, I won't. Slayton said he tweaked his hamstring in the first preseason game, which cost him valuable practice time. That was from Dan Duggan. All right. I think we got everything when it comes to during game, post game, right? So let's talk about Alex. You posted a little two double-sided question here. You want to take over?
Yeah. So what I'd say is let's give our overreactions from the preseason games. Who's going to be the shock cut and who's going to be the shock that makes the team? I'm going to go first. I think the shock cut is going to be Quincy Roche. I think he's going to be the shock cut.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
The guy's been coming into... Sorry, I mean, we can make it boring.
I mean, he's on the third team, so is it really that big of a shock? Maybe not.
Yes. To me, because coming into...
To me it is, I agree, but I don't think to the Giants it might not be.
No, but shock cut in the grand scheme of things, I guess, coming into the... Because shock cut in the way he was on the third team a month ago, it's... Right, yes, but coming into this, I mean, off season, if you ask me, Quincy Roche is going to get cut next year, I'd be like, no. They put him on the first team. They put him on the third team in the first place when preseason or open training camp began, and we were like, what? Why? Kept on third team, was still on really the third team throughout preseason. So, yeah, I would still put it as a shock. I think the Giants are really making a mistake by valuing this guy lesser than I think he is as a player on the field. And if he goes to another team, I bet you then he will have a starting role, if not second on that depth chart, and he'll definitely have playing time on another team if he goes there. But Alex, we agree, I think, both on the shock cut. And then on the shock, you started with the shock cut. I'll start with the shock. The shock player that makes the team. I don't know if they're a shock to make it. But whatever. I'll say it for
the entertainment.
What's the word? Sure. Go with that. For the entertainment, Austin Calitro, the guy, the preseason star.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm going to say Austin Calitro makes the roster.
All right. I was gonna possibly say Calitro, but I almost feel like after today's game, well, I guess it's overreaction from today's game in preseason, right? So it makes sense. I'm gonna go. I think I've talked about Tomon Fox so much that it's not really I think that would be a surprise. So I think, yes, he's one of them. But I think the player I'm going to go with is Darren Evans, cornerback, LSU. I think he could possibly make the roster. He's been the least awful of the corners, in my opinion. So that's not like saying he's good, but he's the least awful. So I think it is a possibility that he makes the roster, in my opinion. And it could be a shock to many.